there was a Chinese proverb that says, he who asks is a fool for 5 minutes, but he who does not ask remains a fool forever. So why ask questions? What's the benefit of asking questions instead of only advising or telling? Now, quite simply, and this is the huge piece, questions hold the power to cause us to think, to create answers we believe in, and motivate us to act on our ideas. So asking moves us beyond passive acceptance to what others say or staying stuck in present circumstances to aggressively applying our creative ability to the problem. This, imagine with our, if I say all this in the thoughts of your client. So if you're asking your clients questions, you're causing them to think, you're creating answers that they believe in, and you're motivating them to act on their ideas. So asking moves them beyond that passive acceptance to or staying stuck in their present circumstances to aggressively applying their creative ability to the problem, not just yours. So questions also redefine relationships between people. So if you think about it, when I or you are advising, mentoring, or consulting, we're the expert. And there is absolutely, when we're talking about consulting clients, there is a place for that. And yet, then my role makes you, or the client, it makes me superior, at least in knowledge, to the client. And yet, when we're asking our client for ideas, we become a peer. Questions honor our client as a person and communicate their value as an equal. And because that approach changes the relationship, it also changes us, the consultant. Because I want you to think, have you ever left a conversation thinking, oh, boy, that conversation was one-sided. The whole thing was about him or her. That's called a lack of conversational generosity. We all hate it when others can't stop talking about their own thoughts and ideas, and yet we're blind to how often we may do it ourselves. So by the approach of asking questions, it forces our conversations to become less about, my thoughts or your thoughts as the agent, your input, and how you can steer the dialogue around to the answer that will work. You start listening, really listening to that other person. You decrease what you say so that others can increase. And that's where the magic happens. The more you listen, the more you see how capable they are, how much they can do with a little encouragement, and what wonderful individuals they are. The more that's a game changer. So it's the more you ask, the more you love. So, so before there, I want to go to the next piece where I talk about like some different like reasons to ask and some next steps that we're going to do to this. I'd love to hear from you guys. What are you hearing from me when I think, when we talk about questions, changing that relationship, or anything, what's coming to your mind when you think about what I just shared?
Try to do that. I try to make, and I feel like that's the reason for the referrals that I have and the business that I've had. I try to listen. I try to sit. If it takes 3 hours, then I spend 3 hours. Try to make them feel like, I've had clients close and be like, oh, I didn't realize, I thought I was your only client. So, I try to make everyone feel that way. I know some days I'm more rushed than others, but I try not to show it. And I do try to ask questions and look at daylilies and all their garden pictures and grandkids and dogs and act like everything is the best thing ever. And I don't know how to use a hammer and, all those things to make a man feel superior and a woman feel like the best thing ever. Just, I don't know. I think about all those things when I'm showing. Who do I talk to? Who do I look at more? Which one's more attractive?
Yeah.
How I hold myself, what clothes I wear. I think about all those things when I go to meet a client.
Mm-hmm. And the interest, and I can tell that even without having been with you with a client, because of your success rate, because of the responses that you're getting. So something where this piece, you may, because you're naturally asking questions, what this program may actually do for you is help you with that yes and. So how cool would it be if you could leave them with that same feeling of, I thought it was your only client, instead of some clients it takes 3 hours, maybe it only takes 2 or it takes 1, and yet ultimately they still get that same feeling of, holy shit, like I'm her only client, like she's amazing, right? So that may be part of where this will help you get there. So what about you? What did you hear? What are you thinking as I shared those pieces?
We kind of talked about it before with the questions. Like, I'm kind of like Amanda, I try to get on their personal level, see what they're, and I've always kind of used that Ford method, maybe not in the order, but just getting to know them, but not be nosy, but learning to ask questions, and not, because I used to be I didn't realize I was one up, and I thought I was being relational about, yeah, I've done that too. And so what I've learned is to hold back saying that until they've talked a while and then be like, oh yeah, so learning to be more about them and not that realizing that some of what I was doing relational, I think that's the word.
Yeah.
Sometimes could come off as a one up. So learning to really just ask the questions. And I put that in a lot lately, asking questions.
Yeah.
And I have learned, and I don't know, this is back to the whole feeling more spunky, but like I've learned my country twang comes out a whole lot the longer I talk to people when I'm getting on their level versus like coming off real professional. Matter of fact, I had somebody call me the other day that told me my voicemail didn't sound like me because it was too professional. So, kind of that.
Yeah. Well, so, and I love that. And what you just said is huge for anybody, that's listening or will listen to this later. That's what, you said, in the past, and I've been guilty of this. I promise you at some point I'm still guilty of this, but it's that me too. We think we're relational, but really it's me too. And it is, it's like that one up. And so, the next place that I want to look at, or before we go to the next place, I did want to, 5 great reasons to ask. So I'm going to give you a 5, and then I'm going to go back through and talk about these 5. 5 great reasons to ask questions. All the information is with the client. Now, I don't mean about the actual process, right? That's kind of where we're consulting. But as far as, well, I'll go into that. So all the information is with the client. Asking creates buy-in. Asking empowers. Asking develops leadership capacity. We don't always think of that in the phrase of like a deal, but they're leading their family, they're leading their life, right? So they're a leader. And then asking creates authenticity. Okay. So if I go back to the first one, it says all the information is with the client. Nobody knows more about them than they do, right? They are the resident expert on themselves. So if you're trying to improve your relationship with them, and you've asked questions, now you can call upon the memories, or they're, why they don't like this, why do they like that, what's important to them about that. That's all going to live with them. Asking creates buy-in. This starts with the assumption that the key to change is not knowing what to do, it's being motivated to do it. People are more motivated to carry out their own ideas and solutions. Again, that asking creates buy-in, and buy-in gets the result. So if we just tell the client what to do, sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't. But if we can, get the buy-in, that's going to be the biggie. Asking empowers. Think about they're going to be, and I'm going to share some questions in just a bit, but there are people that want to buy a house and they can financially and all of that, and yet they don't have the confidence to step out and do it. There's like, well, what do I do next, right? So empowering them through those questions is going to be huge. Then asking develops leadership capacity. So this could be something as simple as when we're asking them, which of these options, let's say we're in inspections, which of these options would you want to pursue? Like backing out of the house, moving forward, are there any obstacles to get this done that we need to address? And they give you the obstacles. And then you say, well, and because normally, and it makes sense. And a lot of times we want to jump in and go, this is what I'll do for you. There are times, absolutely. And yet, sometimes you will be surprised and they'll go, well, these are the 5 things that concerned about, but my daddy can fix one and my mama can do this and da, 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 right. And then now they've led that, they become the leader in that and is taking it's to handled. And then also asking creates authenticity. We all want to be known and loved. There's no greater relational gift than to have someone see the real you and value it. The art of asking creates a bond between us and those we work with, because by asking, we honor and value them. Taking the time to ask significant questions and then, of course, listen to the answers communicates what we really want to know, who they are at a deep level. This is the quickest way to build trust and transparency between people. And when we talk about the things that they really want, they make changes that are truly transformational. And of course, this isn't just with your client, it's that agent on the other side as well, right? So this is, so my goal is we're going to, over the next 10 weeks, we're going to become a master of asking, which is really just a master of communication. I want you guys to think of this as like a 10-week weightlifting program for your asking muscles, almost like a self-study course. And yet when we get together on Fridays, we're going to practice specific things. You'll know about it beforehand so that you can practice it. It's all going to be things that will help us find clients, work with them more efficiently, get them to say yes. So it'll, it's going to be through that context. And yet I think that you'll see that it's going to play out everywhere in your life. I'm going to pause here before we go over some actual questions that you guys might choose to write down. I'll put them in the chat box as a place to start, because I want to kind of give some demonstrations of questions while we're together today. I'd love to hear from you guys. When had you thought of questions that way? Or, we know questions are important, but had we thought about the things that it would do? Or how's this landing for you guys when we look at getting really good at asking questions?
For me, and I don't know why I've never thought about this. So like, I don't have a problem making conversation with people. You never have, but now, and I have no problem when I show houses, like just asking questions. But I've always been intimidated by asking for a listing unless they come to me. And you kind of said something with the whole asking questions, like it's the same relationship. I don't know why that makes me nervous. I enjoy listings a lot. I enjoy the chase of it, but it's so crazy that I get intimidated if I know I'm going to compete for one. When you're asked, it's the same questions. It's you're showing the value, I guess, there. That you're trying to build a relationship with them, and yet that question intimidates me, but asking a zillion questions at a showing does not.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same thing, like you're asking questions to build a relationship and show that you value them. And yet I'm looking at it as I'm asking them to hire me, but really I'm trying. If I thought about it the way you just said it, there should be no intimidation. I mean, yell it, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I could look at it that way and not be scared to ask. I just lost a listing that went live with another agent. I kind of know probably why it went live, but that's a whole story. But like, that kind of had me down because I asked, but I didn't, I guess, ask a certain way, or I was intimidated. And honestly, like, it could have been a matter of questions that I could have won it, but I knew I was competing with the other agent, but it is what it is.
Well, and we learn from everything, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's feedback, right? So you got some feedback, and now we're going to have some questions that we can that could possibly make a difference next time. Then we're going to get some new feedback. Absolutely. But yeah, it's I like that there's this quote out there that says nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And so, the more that they just feel that from us because of how we communicate, it makes a huge difference. And then on top of that, you said something about, you're really good in, just in conversation or having. So the difference that we're looking to do with these questions is to go from a place of, yes, we're still going to ask questions. We want to be over there with them, but how do we ask the questions that are going to be the most impactful, that are going to get us there efficiently, and yet they're still left feeling the way that we want them to be left feeling whenever we finish talking with them. So these are, and I'm going to put these in the chat box because I'm recording this, so anybody after this call, they can come back and listen to this as well, so we can get everybody on the same page. There are some questions that I want you guys to think about as we move forward. These are some questions that I want you to think of. And the thing that we're going to do with questions is I'm going to give them kind of like a heading. So I want you to think, these are some action questions. So action questions, obviously, right? I want somebody to take action. Which of these options do you want to pursue? Are there any obstacles to getting this done that we need to address? You're saying you want to do this. What would make it something that you'll do because you really want to do it? And I forget that I was fast typing and there's some words missing there. Is there anything we need to change or discuss about the step that would help you make a decisive choice on this? So if you have somebody that's kind of maybe waffling, or you might even say, I feel like you're waffling, maybe you can choose to do this or not do it. I just need to hear a clear decision one way or the other. What would you do, or what would you like to do, right? So we can put some of those in our kind of our wheelhouse and go, okay, well, we wanted somebody to take action. What are some things that we might do? You don't have to memorize all of these right now by any means. You don't even have to have them, because we are going to, because I'm going to send these to you guys in a workbook type thing. Now, here are some additional questions. So let's say that we are in a presentation. You'll notice that I changed some of these questions to advocate instead of realtor. That's purely because I liked it. You might still use realtor, you might use something else, right? But let's say you're presenting the buyer's consultation, and then you would say, what would a great advocate in your real estate transaction look like for you? And let them talk. And basically, this is going to allow me to get a playbook of how they like to be treated, right? What about, then you could, maybe whatever you could say, thank you for sharing that. Like, here's an example of how I help someone like you. And you give the example. Or here's how I work with that kind of goal. Here's what I do best as your advocate. Does what I just described about my passion as a realtor sound like what you're looking for? Here's what you can expect if you work with me, right? So those are some pieces when we look at, things we might say in a presentation. We talked also about, I gave you some action questions when you're ready. Well, these are very similar when you're ready for somebody to make a decision. Is there anything else that you need to know to make a decision about hiring me as your advocate and real estate agent? Or, because I think about the first piece is all you have to really learn. Is there anything else that you need to know to make a decision about the house? Is there anything else you need to know to make a decision about the inspector, right? How do you want to proceed? Are you ready to say yes to working with me, or would you like to explore further? What is holding you back from making a decision? So if somebody, whether it's about the presentation or just they're going back and forth about, am I going to buy, is it this one? Well, what's holding you back from making that decision? Let them get it out. Very much like for those of you that were in that class a few weeks ago, whenever we had you guys do like the laughing exercise, and I said, your mind's a scary place. Don't go there by yourself. Asking the question is going to help them get it out of their head, and they may notice that it's, oh, that's not that big a deal. I can do that. Or you may have more information to help them with what's really getting them stuck. What step would you like to take out of this conversation to keep moving forward? Well, I'd like to sign listing paperwork. I'd like to hire you. Great. Right now, it's you're letting them own it. So again, I'm going to pause, and I'd like to hear from you. What are you hearing? What are your thoughts? What are you learning?
I always try to get like on the client's level of figuring them out, but I also like on a negotiating side, we were told to control the conversation. But this time, like there are times or even when I feel like I'm connected, I don't want to come across as if I'm telling them what to do, like almost like I'm talking to them like they're dumb, but I don't talk to them like they're dumb, but I'm giving them info they may already know because I deal with so many that are first time home buyers and don't know. So maybe asking the questions would help cut down some of my conversating that's
Yes.
unnecessary. To
Yes.
some people it is necessary, but like that would help me
Yeah.
allow them to control the conversation
Mm-hmm.
in a way that they feel comfortable, but of course not letting them be in control. But you know what I'm
That's-
saying? Like,
Well, and this is the interesting thing around control. How do you control a conversation?
good question.
That's right. The person that asks questions. So a lot of times when we're just telling, we feel like we're in control, but we're not. And again,
Yeah.
there's a time that because there are times that we absolutely need to say, hey, based on my experience, we have a few options. We could do this. Is there any other option you thought about? Okay, now based on those options, what would you like to do? Right. Another line for you, Kelsey, that you mentioned, like sometimes they may already know it or whatever. A great line for this, so that nobody thinks that you think they're dumb or anything, is the line of, you may already know this. You know what? You may already know this, and yet I'm going to share it to make sure we're on the same page. You may already know this, right? And
Yeah.
now they're like, yeah, I got it. Perfect, right? Well, and this is so absolutely asking the questions, and this is the thing that we're going to really practice, study, is asking open-ended questions. Because if I ask you, do you know, are you familiar? Do you know? Did y'all do inspections? Yes. Okay. We think they know everything about it, and yet absolutely they. Oh yes, we bought a house. Oh great. Can you share your experience through that process? Well, I bought it from my mom or dad. Would you be open to me sharing with you? Right, like, but absolutely, I think that you're right. Like asking those questions is going to be huge, powerful, and it ensures that you're in control and you're telling them what they need to know, that they can appreciate it and get a lot from that. Yeah. Um. So Okay. So